Alright boys, so I'm not sure if you were as surprised as I was to see some of these new mods, but a lot of them are insanely dangerous and pretty direct nerfs to some builds that I don't really feel like needed some nerfs. So it's kind of unfortunate that GGD didn't really tell us what these new mods were going to be, because I do feel like it would impact a little bit of build choice with how common it seems like a lot of these are. But either way, that was then and this is now. So if you're wondering about how you can actually go about fighting back against some of these new mods, and maybe some of them you should avoid, we're going to talk about that in this video. Now remember boys, if you're enjoying my content or these videos help you out, make sure to give them a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit that little notification bell to make sure that you stay up to date with all the latest content. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Now, I've been playing the Summon Skeleton Mage's Necromancer for the first couple days of the league, and things have been going pretty well. However, when I got into maps and I started rolling these maps, I noticed there was some new and very interesting modifiers here. One of the main ones that I've noticed has been kind of surprisingly difficult sometimes is unique bosses are possessed. This mod can be insanely dangerous, especially when it's paired with some of the other new mods. There was a situation that I had on stream at twitch.tv/BigDucks, which you should go follow by the way, I'm pretty much live every single day, where we were doing the Bramble Valley map. And if you don't know, the Bramble Valley map's boss is all three of the tier 4 harvest bosses at the same time. And when we went into this map, we happened to have all of those bosses being possessed, but in particular, the red or purple, whatever color you want to call it, the bear was possessed with two very dangerous spirits. And they made him go extremely fast, have very low cooldown rate, and hit very, very hard. Every single time I even walked into the zone with the boss and that thing looked at me wrong, I was getting one shot instantly from seemingly off screen. And that was with pretty decent defenses as well. So a lot of these mods are insanely dangerous, and there are some things that you can do for them, but this is a whole new set of mods that is just going to make certain builds not be able to run them too well. We're going to go over the list of all of the mods here that I think are pretty dangerous, and I can talk to you about some ways that you can deal with these as well, because there are a few of these that can just simply be dealt with by either putting certain things on your gear, anointing certain things on the tree, getting certain masteries, that kind of thing. So let's talk about it. All right, so I've got a list of mods that I do think that you should watch out for, some maybe things you might not realize, and some stuff that you should do to be able to fight back against some of these mods, some ways to deal with them. The first one, and this took me pretty by surprise initially when it happened, was Consecrated Ground. You can now have just enemy consecrated ground throughout the area. This can cause problems on some maybe larger bosses that are a little bit difficult to kill, or maybe your build's not doing as much damage, or maybe they already heal. There's also a bunch of modifiers from the new influence altars that can make bosses really tanky. This does not help on top of everything else. It's going to make it, I think, 5% life regeneration per second when they're standing on the consecrated ground, so that is pretty dangerous. There isn't a ton that you can do about this. You can pull bosses off of it by moving your minions or other things, just trying to keep them off of the actual ground itself. Just be aware that when you do roll consecrated ground on a map, it might make bosses or other difficult mobs very extremely tanky. Think like Archnemesis mobs or Metamorph mobs. Next on the list is Monsters Avoid Impale. I was actually really sad to see this one on the list. It makes sense to have it as one of the modifiers, but Impale builds already weren't doing amazing to begin with, and now that they have another modifier that kind of just deletes the damage of their build, specifically I'm talking about like steel builds or builds that rely on Impales for damage, this modifier is a little bit annoying, because the thing that makes Impales actually properly function is getting that 100% chance to Impale so you can stack it all the way up to 6 very easily without losing any stacks. Monsters having a chance to avoid Impale is not deal withable as far as I can tell, because if I remember properly, back when Ignite was the meta, I think it was an ultimatum, there was a problem where there was a map mod that made it so that enemies could avoid your elemental ailments, and there wasn't really a way to like always ignite. Even if you got the node from the elementalist that said your attacks always ignite just means you have a 100% ignite chance. So if it's 70% less, then you're still only gonna have 30% chance. It's pretty bad. Now on the flip side of this, there is a new modifier that can make monsters impale you. Now you're gonna have to worry about this mod making you take significantly more physical damage, so make sure that you've got that up to snuff. Make sure you've got like your armor going well, physical damage reduction, life total's good, block, all that kind of good stuff, because impales will make you take a lot of damage, especially from mobs that hit very, very frequently. Of note, if you're having issue with this modifier at any given time, there is a mastery. I think it's on the resistance and ailment mastery, like the ones that are on like the chaos resist nodes, that makes you immune to impale. You can grab that if you need to. There's also another new modifier for caster builds, which is monsters have a chance to suppress spell damage. damage, meaning that you're going to do half damage. If you combine that with like resistances to what you're doing and avoidance of other things, you can make it so that monsters take almost 0 damage from your spells, which can be pretty bad. So if you get a bunch of these all on the same map, maybe consider re-rolling it if you're playing a spell build. Now this next one is probably one of the more dangerous ones, I feel, especially for early on, and that's going to be monsters gain percentage of max life as extra max ES. Now this is completely ignored by chaos damage builds, so if you're playing like poison or chaos or something like that, you're a-okay, ignore this mod. Doesn't do almost anything to you. However, if you're playing any other builds and you're having problems like getting a boss down in time, or the boss maybe has like a down phase or something like that, and you got this modifier on it, Energy Shield can recharge occasionally. So, you know, if you do a whole bunch of damage to a boss and you get like 10%, 20% of its life down and then you die, or you need to move away for a moment and that boss recharges its whole energy shield, well, if they've gained like 50% of their max life as extra energy shield, you're gonna have to kill like a whole boss again. It can be pretty bad. The next one on this list, I was not prepared for how difficult this actually made some of the bosses that I fought, and this is unique bosses in map are possessed. What this means is that, you know, those little green tormented spirits that float around and possess things and make them real strong? Well, this modifier just makes it so that all unique bosses on the map are, you know, spirited. Watch out for this modifier, because if the boss of the area gives you problems in general, you may want to be careful with having this modifier in the map. There's not really a good way to deal with this. It is good for loot, very good for loot, but be a little careful with this one on bosses of maps that you have a little bit of trouble with. Monsters steal power, frenzy, and endurance charges on hit. This one is just like a guaranteed chance to just lose any of your charges when monsters hit you. Flicker Strike builds, watch out. Builds that typically scale endurance charges or power charges to do their damage or survive, watch out. This one could be pretty annoying, especially if you're a Flicker Strike build and all of a sudden you're just getting hit like 4 or 5 times and losing all of your Flicker Strike ability. I mean, that's going to be pretty bad. This next one is players have less cooldown recovery. This just feels like a just kind of feel bad modifier, honestly. Cooldown recovery is one of the things that is pretty frustrating for builds that are based off of cooldowns. Think like Seismic Trap or any ability that does have a long cooldown. Having less cooldown recovery is just so painful, honestly. Having to wait so significantly longer to be able to use your abilities, pretty rough. So if you are a build that does rely on cooldown recovery, this one can be something to watch out for. There's not really much that you can do about it. The rest of these mods are very similar, and the next one is buffs on players expire faster. So that means if you're using like a guard skill, or you're using like a blessing or something that is buffing your character to either make you tanky enough to survive or to do enough damage to kill a boss, this just makes your buffs go away real fast. It's kind of cool. There's not really much that you can do about it. I wouldn't worry too much about this one in general, but just do be aware if your build relies on cooldowns or relies on buffs for defensives or offensives, be aware that this might just randomly cause you to die. And the last one is players have reduced effect of non-curse auras from skills. I was very surprised to see this. This is just like a direct nerf to most of the new defenses that they've put into the game, because most people are scaling their armor or evasion with things like Grace or Defiance Banner and things like that. And this is just a hard nerf to that. So watch out for this one. It can be deceptively dangerous, because if you are getting most of your physical, say, defenses or avoidance from your auras, this could just completely wreck your character and make you unable to really survive most of the time, so do be aware. And that is going to be it for the video. So keep in mind that these new mods, and this isn't even all of the mods, there's a couple more, but they weren't really as dangerous, or I might have missed one or two, so keep in mind these mods are pretty scary, and do be aware that you're going to have to watch out for a few of these, and it's going to make some bosses a little bit more difficult. So keep your eyes open, be careful when you're rolling those maps, and remember, if this video helped you out, give it a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the little notification bell, and stay safe out there in raid class. And I will see you guys in the next video.